right. Next up, Gwyneth.
Yes, and he hasn't introduced me because he doesn't know what I'm going to talk about.
I have no idea.
Right,
No.
well, I'm going to talk about poetry.
Whoa.
Now, yeah, that's a very strange thing to be talking about in a business networking group. But Gary, I said to him, what should I talk about? And he said, talk about what you're passionate about. And I thought, well, I could talk about digital publishing. I could talk about how modern technology has changed reading habits and things that are all to do with my business. And I went, you know what? What am I passionate about? I've been writing poetry for nearly 50 years. I think that's probably what I'm passionate about. So we're going with the poetry. As I say, I've been writing poetry for nearly 50 years. And before that, before I learnt to write, I was making up poetry. I was making up rhymes, I was playing with language. All children do that, it's a natural thing. And then the thing is that I never stopped. I still play with language and make up rhymes, etc. But, so what I want to talk about is poetry, but I also want to relate it to business. When I started with poetry, I didn't know anything about poetry. I was writing what I liked, and I was just doing it instinctively. When I started up in business, actually it was fairly instinctive as well. I'm not one of those people who knew that they wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was a natural progression of what I was doing, but it wasn't really my ambition. With poetry, I've been writing for years, and I've been sending things out to magazines and to competitions. And one day I sort of went, you know what? My poetry is failing. It's coming back from those magazines, or the editors aren't even replying. It's not getting accepted. It's not winning competitions. I obviously actually don't know what I'm doing, which is fairly sad. But I decided that the thing to do then was to learn. Again, with business, yeah, I was a freelance and I was sort of paddling around in the shallow end. But I realised that actually, if I wanted to have a business that grew, and if I wanted it to progress, I also needed to learn about business. It isn't something that comes naturally to me. Poetry is, and I had to learn about poetry, so obviously with business even more so. So with poetry, what did I do? I bought books, I joined groups, I went on courses, I went on workshops, and what have I done with the business? Well, I bought books, I've gone on courses, and I've come to events where I network with people. Because really, the workshops that I do with my poetry, it's not just poets, it's writers of all types. You don't need only to be dealing with people who do exactly what you do. The networking, the courses, they're all really important, but this sort of event is fundamental. So, where do we go from there? Yes, I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't done any market research. When I first came across market research, it was actually through my poetry. I was doing a course and it said, if you want to be published, go out and read the magazine you want to be published in. Find out what that editor wants. Don't just assume that what you like is what they like. And again, with business, we need to be producing the products that our clients want, not just what we think would be nice to produce. We need to be getting in the head of our clients and finding out what's required out there. Let me think about point 3. Yes, we need to be talking to people, but we need to be talking to people as well in their language. I could read a poem now, and maybe you'd like it. But if you did, you wouldn't need to know anything more about it than that was a poem you liked. You don't care whether it's catalectic iambic pentameter, or whether it's a sonnet, or whether it's a haiku. The product is what you like. You don't need those technical words. However, if I'm going to a workshop where I'm going to be talking to other poets, those words can actually be quite useful. So, yes, we all have a jargon, that is part of our business. And if we're talking to our colleagues, that's probably a good jargon to be using. But if we're talking to other people, if we're talking at a networking event, don't blind me with science of what, unless I'm interested. If I am, then fine. Poets are famous for being obsessive about details. There's a lovely story of Oscar Wilde that he went to a dinner party and the hostess asked how he was, and he was exhausted. He'd had a really, really strenuous day. He'd been checking the proofs for his latest poetry collection. And he said the morning was really, really taxing. He'd spent all morning over these proofs and he'd taken a comma out. And then he'd had lunch. And then, the afternoon, yes, it was just as bad, if not worse, just as arduous. And the result was, he put the comma back in. That, theoretically, is a true story. I personally can totally understand it. I get obsessive about those details. And as business people, we know that details are important. But I sit there and I look at the emails and I think, do I need that call? There's a better word for that one. Will they know what I mean there? Oh, do I need to put another paragraph in there? Oh, I'll put it in my drafts and I'll come back to it tomorrow when I've got more objectivity. And I come back to it the next day and maybe it looks better, maybe I think, oh, just as well I didn't send it. Oh no, I'll put it back in drafts and think about it again tomorrow. And with poetry, it actually doesn't matter if it takes you years to write a poem. Nobody else really cares. If you've heard of haiku, theoretically they're 17-syllable poems, so tiny little images. I have one that actually took me 3 years from the moment that I had that idea and I found the 10 words to capture that idea 3 years later. You can't do that with business. A lot of poets do say that a poem is not finished until it's been read. If you don't have an audience, you're not a poet if you're not read. So eventually these poems should be finished and sent out and hopefully read by the editor and hopefully published and read by a wider audience. With business, obviously, this follow-through, this completion and follow-through is absolutely fundamental. It's what means that your business will progress. So, what have we got? We've got talking to people. We've got feedback and collaboration, which is good for business. We've got looking at details. We've got your market research and your follow-through. Now, all of these things are important for business, important for poetry. There's lots and lots of other things that I could talk about, but poetry is a concise form, and I've not been watching the clock, but I suspect that it's close to my 10 minutes. So I'm going to say thank you for listening. Thank you for Gary for inviting me to talk. And if anyone wants to know more about poetry or about what my business actually is and does, please ask now or later.
Can you read one of your poems? Because I feel like we should definitely hear a poem.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
Another rule of business, be prepared. I do, of course, have a poem, but I will have to read it. Okay? Slattern. My laptop is a messy eater. Each morning I find telltale crisp crumbs wedged between its square white teeth, alongside cracker fragments and the improbably orange powder of industrial snacks. It's happy sat atop a takeout pizza box, and olive stones have never yet upset its equilibrium. It's anchored to the desk by coffee rings, And gin and tonic lemon juice has glued the disk drive shut. Pass me a paper towel and I will wipe that smear of melted chocolate from the space bar lip. Thank you.
We all relate to the whole thing.
Just in the next half hour, guys, what I'd like you to do, hands up if this is your first time networking. No